言的是 Iron Gibson， 请杨小俊做准备。
Our next speaker, Aaron Gibson. Xiao Zhu, please be prepared.
Thanksgiving and a year of great change. First, let me say thank you for your grace, Master. Also, thank you to my fellow practitioners, without whom I would not be here today. I hope there are no human errors in my paper due to any serious lack of understanding. And to the translators, I'm sorry if I did not make it in time for my first conference of my cultivation. There's too much to write about, many things, so I will elaborate on the self-introduction I made during the first local group study meeting in Atlanta, where I live, that occurred over the internet once the COVID-19 lockdown had begun. I was fortunate enough to be at the last in-person meeting prior to this, but I only observed at that time. I have been practicing perhaps since February of 2020, and it is now November. My discussions with another practitioner about their project helped me decide on a subject for this paper. So did the Thanksgiving holiday. If only I kept a journal from the first day, I would have much richer material, but hindsight is 2020, as they say. This is related to what was going on in my life just before I came to DAFA. I do not remember my exact words, but I do know that in my introduction I mentioned my demon that I had exercised prior to coming to DAFA. That event kind of cleared the way for me to understand DAFA is good. I was abused by my parents as a child. Well, it was a little more complicated, but it was an isolated incident, and they tried desperately to cover it up to the extent of dissociating from it themselves, while I buried it deep inside. I took drugs as a youth once I left home, looking for the fall in the wrong places. And then one fateful night, I started to remember what had happened as a child, and I almost lost my mind. It took me many years to confront this karma demon of mine. Trying to run from it still.
Next speaker is Ni Yuan. Steve Song, please be prepared.
Kính chào sư phụ, kính chào các đồng tu. Tôi đến từ Việt Nam. Tôi biết đến Đại Pháp cách đây hơn 4 năm, nhưng thực sự bước vào tu luyện thì khoảng 1 năm nay. Trước đây, từ sự giới thiệu của gia đình chồng, tôi có biết qua Đại Pháp và vẫn học đọc sách hàng ngày. Nhưng với mong muốn tâm trí được trở thành một người tốt, hay thậm chí chỉ là tò mò muốn xem cuốn sách này như thế nào. Tôi hoàn toàn không hiểu được nội hàm bên trong cuốn sách là gì. Có đôi lúc tôi nghĩ nội dung sách mình đang đọc có đôi chút thần thánh hóa, nhưng tôi vẫn duy trì đọc như một cỗ máy, ngày này qua ngày nọ mà trong đầu dường như chưa có một lãnh hội nào từ Đại Pháp. Vốn là người tin vào tôn giáo, tin vào tín ngưỡng, nên tôi nghĩ môn Pháp Luân Đại Pháp cũng là một tôn giáo tương tự.
Dear Master, dear fellow practitioners, my name is Ni Le. I come from Vietnam. I came to know Da Fa more than 4 years ago, but actually cultivated and obtained the Fa for about a year now. Purely introduced by my husband's family. I know Da Fa and still read books every day, but with the desire to become a good person, or even just curious to see what this book is like. I completely do not understand what the contents of the books is. Sometimes I think the contents of the book I am reading is a literal divinity, but I keep reading like a machine, day in and day out, without any comprehensions from Da Fa in my mind. As a person who believes in religions and belief, I think Falun Dafa is a similar religion.
Tuy không hiểu rõ Đại Pháp nhưng tôi vẫn kiên trì hàng ngày đọc sách. Một ngày nọ tôi nằm mộng. Trong giấc mơ tôi thấy xung quanh mình toàn là những cảnh tượng chết chóc, ma quỷ. Đường về nhà rất khó khăn. Đột nhiên lúc đó tôi chợt nhớ ra chỉ có sư phụ mới có thể giúp mình. Tôi đọc Pháp Luân Đại Pháp Hảo, Chân Thiện Nhẫn Hảo suốt đoạn đường đi và không một yêu ma quỷ quái nào có thể chạm vào mình. Cuối cùng tôi cũng được về nhà an toàn và gặp người thân. Tôi kể cho mẹ chồng tôi sự việc tôi đã trải qua và được bà bảo rằng đó là sư phụ đang điểm hóa cho con hãy tiếp tục cố gắng tu tốt hơn nữa. Những ngày sau đó tôi vẫn tiếp tục đọc sách nhưng chưa luyện 5 bài công pháp.
Although I don't understand Dafa well, I preserve every day to read books. One day I dreamed. In a dream, I only saw scenes surround me full of death and ghosts. The way back home was too difficult. I certainly remember that only Master could help me. I read, Falun Dafa is good, truthfulness, compassion, forbearance is good, all the way, and no evil demon could touch me. Finally, I was able to go home safely to meet my loved ones. I told my mothers-in-law what I went through and was told by her that it is Master who is giving her hints. So please continue to try to cultivate diligently. In the following days, I continued to read the books but did not practice the 5 exercises.
Cuộc sống thay đổi khi vợ chồng tôi chuyển sang Mỹ. Vì gia đình chồng đều là đệ tử Đại Pháp nên lẽ dĩ nhiên tôi cũng được tham gia các buổi học Pháp nhóm cùng gia đình và các đồng tu khác. Anh trai của chồng tôi đã tu luyện Pháp Luân Đại Pháp được 6 năm. Anh ấy chính là người đã hồng Pháp cho tôi và chồng tôi.
Life changed when my husband and I moved to America. Since my husband's family saw both Dafa disciples, of course, I also got to participate in Good Fast study section with my families and other fellow practitioners. My husband's brother has been practicing Falun Dafa for 6 years. He's the one who introduced the Fa for me and my husband.
Tháng 1 năm 2020, tôi may mắn khi có cơ hội được đi xem chương trình nghệ thuật biểu diễn Sen Yun của Đại Pháp. Lúc mở màn chương trình, tôi vô cùng kinh ngạc khi trước mặt mình là một cảnh tượng quá đổi thiêng liêng nhưng có gì đó rất gần gũi. Tôi không hiểu vì sao nước mắt cứ chực trào ra, mặc dù tôi đã cố kìm nén nó lại. Rồi có những đoạn tôi bật khóc khi chứng kiến những thế lực tà ác đã đàn áp học viên Pháp Luân Đại Pháp dã man đến chừng nào. Các vũ công, ánh đèn, âm nhạc, mọi thứ quá đẹp, quá thiêng liêng. Tâm thái tôi cảm thấy rất nhẹ nhàng, không một chút suy nghĩ, bận tâm về mọi chuyện bên ngoài. Sau lần đó, tôi có chút vững tin vào Đại Pháp và bắt đầu tu luyện.
In January 2020, I was lucky to have the opportunity to see Dafa Shenyun Performance Art Show. At the opening of the program, I was amazed that there was such a sacred scene in front of me, but there was something very close. I don't understand why tears flow out even though I try to suppress it. That there is an episode where I hiccup like a child when I watch the evil forces persecuted Falun Dafa practitioners. The dancers, the light, the music, everything is so beautiful, so sacred. My mind felt very light, without thinking, bothering about everything outside. After that time, I have a little bit of confidence in Dafa and started to cultivate.
Vào một buổi tối, khi đang luyện bài công pháp thứ 5, trong lúc nhập định, tôi được sư phụ khai mở thiên mục. Lúc đó tôi có chút giật mình, nhưng tôi đã cố gắng tiếp tục đến khi hoàn thành xong bài. Lúc này tôi tin vào sư phụ, tin vào Đại Pháp nhiều hơn.
One evening, while doing the 5th exercise, while in the meditation, I was opened by Master with the celestial eyes. At that time, I was a bit startled, but I tried to continue until I finished. At this point, I believe in Master and believe in Dafa more.
Tháng 5 năm 2020, ba tôi trải qua một cơn bạo bệnh. Ông bị mắc bệnh tai biến mạch máu não và phải nhập viện. Vì ảnh hưởng của đại dịch Covid nên tôi không thể về thăm nhà, thăm ba được. Mọi thứ dường như suy sụp, nhưng không cách nào khác ngoài việc cầu xin sư phụ giúp đỡ. Tôi xin sư phụ giúp ba tôi khỏi bệnh. Tôi hứa với sư phụ tôi sẽ cố gắng chuyên tâm tu luyện và thuyết phục ba tôi học Đại Pháp nếu ba tôi được khỏi bệnh. Với mong muốn như vậy, hàng ngày tôi đọc sách cho ba tôi nghe, kể những câu chuyện chia sẻ của đồng tu, khuyên ba tôi hãy vững tin vào sư phụ, nhưng tình trạng của ông càng ngày càng xấu. Trong tâm tôi không một lúc nào không cầu xin sư phụ giúp ba tôi khỏi bệnh. Tôi luôn thầm đọc Pháp Luân Đại Pháp Hảo, Chân Thiện Nhẫn Hảo bất cứ lúc nào với hy vọng được sư phụ nghe thấy. Nhưng mà 6 tháng sau thì ba tôi mất. Khi nhận được tin từ Việt Nam, điều đầu tiên tôi nghĩ là tôi trách sư phụ. Tại sao sư phụ không giúp ba khỏi bệnh? I'm sorry about that. Tôi có sư phụ, tại sao sư phụ lại không giúp ba mình khỏi bệnh? Tại vì mình đã đọc sách, luyện công rất chăm chỉ nhưng cuối cùng ba tôi cũng mất. Tôi rất buồn và tuyệt vọng, sau đó 4 ngày tôi nằm mộng và được sư phụ điểm hóa. Tôi thấy sư phụ và tôi đang ngồi trong lớp. Sư phụ mặc đồ vest đen, nét mặt rất hiền từ hỏi tôi: theo con, ý nghĩa của nước là gì? Tôi ngập ngừng không trả lời được. Sư phụ lại hỏi tiếp:
Vậy theo con thế nào là một người tốt? Tôi bảo thưa thầy, người tốt là một người ngoài vẻ đẹp bên ngoài còn phải có tấm lòng nhân hậu bên trong. Sư phụ mỉm cười trả lời: đó là nhận thức của người thường, còn chúng ta là người tu luyện. Dứt lời, tôi nhìn sang phía cuối lớp, tôi thấy ba tôi đang ngồi ở đó im lặng lắng nghe sư phụ và tôi nói chuyện. In May 2020, my father experienced a violent illness. He suffered from a stroke and this is his 3rd time. It was in a very critical condition and has to be hospitalized. Due to the impact of the COVID-19 epidemic, I was unable to go home to visit my father. I was very sad. Everything seemed to be down, but there was no other way but to ask Master for help. I asked Master to help my father get well. I promised Master I would try my best to cultivate diligently and would persuade him to study Tafa if he got well. With this wish, every day I read books to my father, told fellow practitioners cultivation experience, and advised my father to firmly believe in Master. But his condition became worse and worse. In my heart, not at all time without asking teacher to help my father get better. I silently read Falun Dafa is good, truthfulness, compassion, forbearance is good. At any time, hoping to hear from Master. 6 months later, my father passed away. When receiving news from my relative in Vietnam, the first things I thought was, I blame Master. Why did not Master help my father recover from his illness? I read a book, practice the exercises very hard, but in the end, my father I also lost. I am sad and hopeless. 4 days later, I dreamed and received and saw Master. I saw Master and I were sitting in the classroom. Master in a black suit, his gentle expressions asked me, what do you think is the meaning of water? I hesitated, unable to answer. Master asked again, what do you think is a good person? I told sir, a good person is a person who, beside the outer beauty, must have a kind heart inside. Master smiled and replied, that is the perception of ordinary people, and we are cultivators. After I finished my word, I looked at the back of the class. I saw my dad and dad sitting there quietly listening to Master and me talking.
Tỉnh giấc, tôi thấy trong người rất sảng khoái. Tôi biết sư phụ tối qua muốn nhắc nhở mình. Sư phụ muốn cho tôi biết là Ngài đang quản ba tôi. Ba tôi đang ở bên cạnh Ngài và ba tôi đã không phải rơi vào địa ngục. Ba tôi đang đợi tôi ở không gian khác, cũng như các sinh mệnh khác đang đợi đệ tử Đại Pháp cứu độ chúng sinh. Sư phụ đã từng giảng nguyên thần là bất diệt. Tôi cảm thấy có lỗi với sư phụ vì trong tôi có những tư tưởng không tốt đối với sư phụ.
When I woke up, I felt very refreshed. I knew Master wanted to remind me last night. Master told me that he was in charge of my father. My father was by his side and my father did not have to fall into hell. My father is waiting for me in another dimension as well as the other being waiting for Tafa disciple to save sentient being. Master said the main consciousness is eternal.
Bệnh của ba tôi là do nghiệp tạo thành. Sư phụ có giảng, chư vị không thể thay đổi vận mệnh của cha mẹ, anh em chư vị. Do tôi chưa buông bỏ được tâm trị bệnh cũng như chưa thật sự học thấu pháp nên đã có những ý nghĩ không tốt đối với sư phụ. Nhưng sư phụ đã không từ bỏ tôi, sư phụ đã điểm hóa, chỉ bảo tôi cần phải chuyên tâm tu luyện để đạt được thành tựu, cứu ba tôi, cứu độ chúng sinh. Tôi nguyện với sư phụ tôi sẽ vững bước tinh tấn trên con đường tu luyện của mình để không phụ lòng sư phụ. Con xin cảm ơn sư phụ, cảm ơn các đồng tôi đã lắng nghe.
My father's illness is caused by karma. Master taught in lecture 4 Trần Falun. Could you really change a person's destiny? Because Because I still have attachment for healing illness who does not study the file diligently and have had negative thoughts toward Master. But Master does not give up on me. I pray that I will steadfastly step diligently on my cultivation path so as not let Master down. I thank Master for the great compassion. Thank you, fellow practitioner, for listening to my share. Thank you.
I'm mindful of the fact that as a cultivator in the maze, we cannot know for certain whether or not we are doing the right things, how high our levels are, or what powers we have. There is not a way to feel whether or not one is correctly doing righteous thoughts. As with meditation, I needed to do the things I was supposed to do and not focus on the results that I could experience. As long as I followed Master's instructions, the rest would be taken care of. Master says, cultivation is up to you, Gom is up to the Master, Juan Philip. I also realized that all of the thoughts about being suspicious as to whether or not I could do righteous thoughts were in fact not my thoughts to begin with. Whenever they come up, I quickly eliminate them. I understand that they are trying to prevent me from doing righteous thoughts because I am having an effect and they are frightened. Sometimes I still slacked off. One day, I decided to skip afternoon righteous thoughts because I had sent righteous thoughts in the morning. Suddenly, I thought, if you only want to be a practitioner a quarter of the time, should Master only be your Master a quarter of the time? Should he not protect you in the afternoon because he protected you in the morning? Once again, I realized the ridiculousness of my human side and sent forth righteous thoughts. Clarifying the truth. As a far rectification period doubtful disciple, I knew I needed to save sentient beings. I looked for projects to join, but living in a rural area and with my skill set, it was challenging. One day, I had an idea to make a comment to clarify the truth. I could write. However, I could not draw. Therefore, I would need to look for other disciples to help me. This was quite scary, as I was always afraid of being socially awkward and hated initiating things myself for fear of failure. However, eventually I decided to give it a try. I put a post on a Facebook group and was happily surprised to find that many people liked my idea and wanted to help me. Another practitioner and I soon began to work on the project. I quickly found many attachments, such as wanting to be complimented, fame, fear, impatience, and others. Whenever the project stalled, it would only move forward again after I looked inside to see where I fell short. There were many obstacles along the way, and I had to do many things that made me uncomfortable. Sometimes I wanted to give up. I felt that I was not good enough as a writer or coordinator to make the project succeed. Suddenly, I had an image of a magnificent heavenly being that was as tall as the heavens and very beautiful. My true self was a king from very high levels. It was rather silly to think of a heavenly being inadequate. In addition, I was acting for Dafa, the most powerful thing in the whole cosmos. Was there anything that an ancient Dafa could not accomplish? After that, I rarely felt nervous or inadequate. However, messaging strangers to see whether or not they wanted to help with the project was still daunting. I had many negative thoughts about what the reactions to me might be. For a while, I simply talked to people anyway and tried to ignore the problem. However, the root attachment to fear was still there. One day, my fellow practitioner told me that she knew an artist who she thought might want to help. The artist didn't like texting, and when she preferred to talk on the phone, I was told to call her the next morning. The next morning, I felt quite scared. I had always hated speaking on the phone. What if she slept at night and I woke her up? I decided to look inside. I found that I was afraid of humiliation. I thought to myself, I am trying to do the most righteous thing in the universe and clarify the truth. What do I have to be embarrassed about? As long as I keep righteous thoughts, everything will work out. The practitioner ended up being a joy to talk to. Not only did she join the project, but we talk on the phone often. I no longer feel afraid when talking to strangers. Eventually, others also joined the project, who had still not found a suitable story despite my best efforts. One day, a practitioner that had just joined the group said it seemed to her that the story needed serious work. She then suggested a story idea that I thought would not work. I was quite upset and even started to cry. My father noticed my distress and began to talk to me. He suggested that I look within. I discovered that I was reluctant to speak my mind to a fellow practitioner. I was once again letting my fear get the better of me. I realized I had the attachment to being nice. I was afraid that if I spoke my mind and I disagreed with the other practitioners, they would think that I was being bossy and uncooperative. Then they might not like me to leave the project. However, because I disagreed with the direction we were taking, it caused obstacles and prevented us from being able to effectively work through the problems. I also felt resentful that they would not simply do what I said. In fact, this resentment and fear was a wall that was preventing my true self from being able to work through the problems that occurred. As practitioners, it is important that we can effectively work together in clarifying the truth. Instead of using Qing, as ordinary people often do, we should stay rational. Only through using rationality, clear-headed thinking, and the thought can we arrive at what we should do. After realizing this, I felt like a big weight had been taken off my shoulders. So I rationally explained to the group what I thought was wrong with the story presented and why I thought mine was a better alternative. To my surprise, the practitioner who originally voiced discontentment about the story liked my comment. We talked over a video call and together were able to come to the best conclusion as to which story to pursue. Conclusion. I am very regretful that I have wasted so many years not being diligent. Thank you, compassionate Master, for never giving up on me and giving me a second chance to temper myself with Atha. I urge any practitioners who have trouble seeing through the lure of the secular world to think about the emptiness of such things. Our rectification is so short compared with the long history of the cosmos. I still have many attachments to let go of and vow to do even better walking my path as it nears the end. I know that my understandings are still shallow. Please point out anything inappropriate.
Lord,